Hello and good morning. Welcome to the Daily Grind here on Latte Firm, Saturday, the 28th of June. And it's an early start. It's been a breakthrough season, a season to remember for two of our Hale End graduates, Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri. And today we want to talk about Hale End. What are they feeding those kids? This is not normal. This is a proper factory of talent. And I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend, Art de Roche of The Athletic. Art, welcome back to the firm. It's been a long time, my brother. How are you?
Thanks for having me, first of all. I'm good. I'm good. As you say, early start, but yeah, looking forward to it, and yeah, good to be back as well.
It's great to have you back. And the early start is actually, obviously, England in the finals tonight. We'll come on to that shortly. You've been covering the under-21s throughout the summer. But also, it's a nice gift, I think, for some of our followers, some of our viewers who watch from Asia and from that sort of side of the world. Our transatlantic friends might be having some issues watching live, but I'm sure you guys can catch up on demand. If anybody wants to follow Art, his work is available, of course, on socials at Art de Roche of The Athletic. Art, what a breakthrough season for two of our brightest Hale End graduates, Lewis-Skelly, Nwaneri. I want to get your thoughts on both of those players. We're going to take a closer look at some of our recent graduates and actually graduates of decades gone by. I reeled out some amazing names to you before we went live on air. We're going to talk about Max Dowman. He is the next big thing. I want to get your thoughts on how early or how big an impact he might have next season, if any at all. And then, of course, unfinished business. A certain Eberechi Eze has been linked with a move to Arsenal, maybe coming back to his boyhood club. Wouldn't that be a terrific dream? So look, buckle in to those of you that are tuning in. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, get involved in the chat as we normally do. Lewis-Skelly, Art, what a season. Having played 85% of his games at youth level in midfield, he came into left-back position under Mikel Arteta at times of need, and now he is the number one left-back for both club and country. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say it's not something that's been a total surprise. Obviously, you can't really predict when a player's going to get a chance. His came against Liverpool, which I think probably would have been a whirlwind for most 18-year-olds, but for him, he took it in his stride. And the reason why I say it probably wasn't too much of a surprise is because Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have kind of been almost gearing him up to play left back for a couple of years now. So I remember watching him in the under-21s. So same season where Arsenal got to the FA Youth Cup with the under-18s. He was playing in midfield for the 18s under Jack Wilshere, but for the 21s, he was playing left back. So there was kind of a foresight there. This would have been 2-3 years ago, that his kind of way into the first team was going to be at left back, doing, I guess, a role that's quite similar to what Alexander Zinchenko was doing at the time. It was Zinchenko's first season at the club then. So yeah, I think for a while there was probably a bit of pre-planning ahead of what his pathway into the first team looked like. And I did actually ask Mikel about it in January, and he said that his kind of conversation with Miles was, this is the way that you're going to get into the first team. And when I've spoken to, say, Mehmet Ali, the under-21s head coach, he's used Bukayo Saka as a reference point, of course, of being a player who maybe his breakthrough into the first team came in a slightly, not, I wouldn't say unfamiliar position, because he'd played left back with England at youth level, but it wasn't his favoured position. And then once he was more established, he was able to kind of make a position his own on the right wing.
Has it surprised you though, just despite all that planning, all that sort of meticulous coaching and development that we've had at Hale End, and of course under Mikel, has it surprised you just how big an impact he's made so quickly? Like, I mean, he burst onto the scene like a certain Michael Richards, but this guy is very much the real deal. I mean, what he's doing at this age on this stage is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm not sure surprised would be the word that I'd use, but that's just because I'd watched him quite a bit. And when you watch him play in the youth teams, I think one thing I try to look at with players is the USPs, so unique selling points. And his was always being able to receive the ball under pressure with contact on him and still kind of find space. And I thought, well, that was playing in midfield. Doing that at left back, I think you're probably getting even more space than you would in midfield. So I was quite, not expecting him to play as well as he has done and score in his England debut and stuff, but I was expecting him to do well when he got his chance. And I think what's probably made it even more kind of impressive is it's not been the linear kind of path that I think everyone thinks it has been. I remember being at preseason game against Leverkusen where I think that would have been his first time playing against men. And Mikel Arteta actually pulled him after the game when they were still on the pitch for a conversation, talking about kind of his body position and needing to be switched on at all times. So you could see this wasn't something that was just grasped at a kind of A-star level immediately. It did need some work, but I think you saw the impact of that quite quickly. So it did seem so seamless.
And despite how good it has been so far in 6 months of football as an 18-year-old, that will still need some further work. He will still get so much better. He's still got to grow. He's still a boy. He's still got to grow physically, mentally. The experience will come. The confidence will. I mean, I don't know how much more confident this kid can get because he is very nonchalant about the way he goes about football. But he's been absolutely magnificent. And to sign him down now for 5 years, absolutely phenomenal. We covered the sort of video that Arsenal did and the role that his mum has played on last night's Late Night Lounge. So I don't want to repeat that today. Another academy player is obviously Ethan Nwaneri, as you can see in that picture on the right-hand side with Saka, who, I know he's a veteran now, but of course he's a recent graduate himself. But Ethan Nwaneri, if I may, he sort of started pretty well, with a couple of really impact performances, faded towards the end of the season with regard to game time. I don't know sort of what happened there. Maybe you can shed some light. And of course, he has been in action for the England under-21s. England, of course, in tonight's final. What do you make of his breakout season?
Yeah, so his, I think, was really, really interesting because I think it's important not to view Ethan and Miles as one person, as they're often kind of grouped together. They're on their own paths, their own separate paths. And I think with Ethan, you saw in his early cameos, he was playing more in midfield. And then Martin Ødegaard got injured. And the expectation, I think, from the outside was, okay, Ethan will just slot in there, but he didn't. Then when Saka gets injured, he slots in on the right wing and performs extremely well. So I think when you look at his season as a whole, there's loads of ups and downs because he had an injury as well that people probably forget about because it was only a couple of weeks. But he showed, I think, how much of a threat he is and how much of a threat he has been throughout kind of the age groups in front of goal because he is so decisive. I think the one thing he's got on his side is he doesn't need to think too much about what he's going to do. It's all instinct. Towards the end of the season, so we did have a kind of media session with him before the under-21s tournament this summer, and he was asked about that, and he said it obviously was a challenge, but it's not something he took to heart, which was good to hear. And I think that when you're looking ahead to next season, I think it just might be about kind of figuring out where he actually fits in this Arsenal team. Personally, for me, I would like to see him play with both Ødegaard and Saka. I think they can all coexist, but I'm not the manager. So.
How would you do that though, Art? Because this is something that has come into my mind quite a lot. Obviously he's a left-footed player, predominantly left-footed. Ødegaard also, Saka also. So what do you do? Are you suggesting maybe shift Saka to the other side, or does Nwaneri go in that sort of left 8, or maybe does he even play as a left wide forward himself?
Yeah, well, so I think when looking at the way he's been used, I'd say over the past 12 months. So if we rewind to last pre-season, he did actually have a spell playing as a left 8, and that's when Fabio Vieira was kind of pushed aside to the bench and the writing was on the wall for him. And when you look back to those games, he actually did quite well. So it was Ødegaard in that right 8 position and Ethan on the left. And what would happen was Ødegaard would actually go over to the left with Ethan. So there was a goal that Ethan assisted for Gabriel Jesus against Manchester United. And if you watch it back, It's all about kind of those short passes, those short combinations, and then Ethan runs in behind and squares it across goal for Jesus to finish. And that's something I think the Arsenal team has been lacking in not just the season just gone, but the season before that as well. Those kind of quick passing moves where teams can't get set, or they are set and they're unlocked. So I think having more players that can kind of, just cause chaos, organized chaos that we were used to 3 seasons ago, I think the better. But then also I would say with Ethan, when you look at how he's been used in the under-21s Euros, and that's mostly been kind of fleeting minutes. He had 1 or 2 starts in the group stages, but has been used off the bench more often since. In the knockouts, he's come on up front, which has been interesting. But then there was also a game where he played as kind of a left number 10, and it was kind of interesting to see his movements there. Sometimes he'd kind of fake like he was going to drift out wide and then spin back inside and kind of create space for himself that way, which is quite good to see. But yeah, I think when you look at that midfield, I'm also wondering, does everything have to be 4-3-3 all the time? I'm not sure personally, but as I said earlier, I'm not the manager.
Well, to have the options and to have the tactical versatility, and listen, with Zubimendi coming in, and there might be maybe a sort of pivot in the central midfield where you got a pair of 2, and Arteta might shift things. Who knows? I mean, look, there's no doubting his talent. Every time he came on off the bench, there was almost that sort of expectation because of the energy and the directness that he brings in terms of his playing style. And he's obviously a very, very promising talent for the future. Of course, our youngest ever Premier League player, having made his debut at just 15 years and 181 days from memory back in 22. So, he's 18 now. He scored last season 9 goals across all competitions. So a really, really good first proper season. Are you expecting his contract situation to be sorted soon?
Yeah, it's not one that's as close as the Miles one. So
the Miles one is done.
or as the Miles one was. So I wouldn't expect it to be like immediate. But obviously it's one that Arsenal would hope to kind of sort out, and they have been in talks about it throughout the summer as well.
And how's he doing for the under-21s? They're obviously in the final tonight. He's not had too much game time, but thoughts?
Yeah, so it was interesting just because he's the youngest player in the squad at first, because Joe Bellingham was in the squad as well. It was by about 18 months, but after Bellingham left, he's now the youngest by about 2 years,
Wow.
which is kind of, I think, interesting context to kind of keep hold of. He came off the bench in the first game and really impressed. I think his first action was to nutmeg his marker and get a shot off. But I think as the tournament's progressed, it's kind of been more just glimpses of things. So that performance I mentioned as a left number 10, that was in a goalless draw against Slovenia, where, to be fair, he could have had an assist and he should have scored, actually. There was a really good chance squared across the 6-yard box for him, which he kind of just mishit. And then he laid off a chance for Harvey Elliott, who then mishit his shot in the second half. So that was an afternoon that kind of summed up England as a whole in the group stages, because they weren't really in full flow. They were kind of limping towards the knockout stages. But as England have got to the knockout stages, they've kind of relied on a few different players. So Omari Hutchinson, former Arsenal Academy graduate, is really impressed. As we're talking now, he's completed more dribbles than anyone in the tournament, 24. And whenever he gets the ball, you can hear Lee Carsley, the head coach, shout, "Run at him," or "Go at him," or a variation of that. And to be fair, actually, Ashley Cole is out there as an assistant head coach as well. And you could hear him saying similar whenever Hutchinson gets the ball. It's always, "Go 1-on-1."
I can imagine Arteta screaming that at this guy. Would be drowned out of the Emirates. Very interesting. Love that. Thanks for sharing. And of course, we wish England all the best in tonight's final against Germany. We were going through some of the names that I sort of reeled off before we went live on air, as it were. And, from your Liam Brady's and your David O'Leary's to sort of my generation, your Paul Merson, your Tony Adams. Andy Coles. I mean, what a player he was, and of course he went on to have such a great career, but sadly outside of Arsenal. And then we went through that sort of Wenger phase of your Szczesny's and your
My
Cesks.
face.
Yeah. Cesc from La Masia, of course, but of course, did settle into the Hale End Academy. And there's been, noticeable names that haven't made it at Arsenal. Eze, who we'll talk about towards the end of the show. Harry Kane, of course, leaving as well. I mean, it is a factory of top talent. And these are some of our more recent graduates. And it's a shame I couldn't find a picture with Emil in there as well. But Eddie Nketiah, Mr. Willock and his brothers as well. I mean, he's one of three, isn't he? Reece Nelson and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I mean, they've all gone on to have really different careers, good careers. But like when you think about the number of people, obviously on the planet, that then play football, that then go to academies, that then play for top clubs, and then actually make it as Premier League footballers, you're talking like 0.00001% or whatever it is of the population. Like, despite not making it at Arsenal, these guys have had very successful careers at top clubs. And it's remarkable, actually. I mean, Hale End has got to be up there as one of the best academies, if not the best.
Yeah, I think the competition they'd have was probably Cobham, Chelsea in England anyway. And then La Masia is ridiculous, as you said earlier. But I think when you look at Arsenal or ex-Arsenal players who have come through the ranks, one thing over the years that I've kind of become really keen on is actually shining a light on that there is a career, a life after Arsenal. Arsenal's not the be-all and end-all. It doesn't have to be for these guys. And actually, one example of that is at the under-21s with England at the minute. Not Omari Hutchinson, but Brooke Norton-Cuffy, who left last summer for Genoa and is now being managed by Patrick Vieira. We had a really, really nice chat ahead of the tournament and basically did an interview, which is now out and was received quite well, which was nice. But I think when you look at these guys, what's really important, so actually all the guys in picture now, I think, is finding, I guess, somewhere to call home. Because when you look at the way they were used at Arsenal, it was always kind of just very fleeting. So I'm thinking about Eddie Nketiah would always pop up at important moments for Arsenal. When you think of the Chelsea game in the season where Arsenal finished 5th, could have got Champions League, but just ran out of puff. Then you think about the Manchester United winners the season after, but could just never get, I guess, the run as a proper first choice player. And now has found a home at Crystal Palace, where he's won the FA Cup, where he's actually back where he's from. I'm actually from the same area as him, Lewisham. So it's been kind of a really nice story. But then you've got Joe Willock. I think he found a really, really good home in Newcastle. I think he's maybe at crossroads now, but I think the fact that he was able to find somewhere where he was, I guess, loved and wanted was really, really key. And it's the same for all of these guys. I think out of those players, Reece Nelson probably needs to find that now this summer. Had a loan spell at Fulham where he was with Emile Smith-Rowe and Alex Iwobi, who I think personally,
of course,
I think Alex Iwobi deserves like a lot of credit for being one of the main, I guess, the guys who's been able to really form a proper Premier League career after leaving Arsenal, because it's not something he wanted to do. But he was able to deal with it and kind of find himself again. Now, I think with Reece, it looks like Fulham do want a permanent deal, but it's just about, I guess, finding what kind of price Arsenal would be happy with, because he's got 2 years left on his contract, so he's a 2027. I think there is an option in there as well, but you'd rather kind of find him a new place this summer than being in a situation where he's loaned out again and again and again, like Tavares or Lokonga. And to be fair, he's got more going for him than they did anyway.
Yeah, look, I mean, while you were talking about all these boys and how they've moved away from Arsenal like that, it's no mean feat to obviously play Premier League football, but it's so difficult to make it at Arsenal, especially when we are a club that is trying to compete at the very top
Mhm.
of the game, and a competition is fierce. Our rivals are relentless in their transfer activity. Like, it's how these guys even get any game time is beyond me. Like, Arsenal should be, trying to just fill their squad with well-established and experienced players, but that's the very fabric of Arsenal Football Club. We've always been that sort of a club that gives young players a chance. I remember Arsene Wenger's final few words before he left the club. We are a club that gives players that chance, young players that dream, that opportunity to play. And it's phenomenal. And actually, it's no surprise. Again, I was doing some research into the academy. These guys start at under sixes, under sevens, obviously competitively under nines. And I was looking through all the staff. They've got tens of people that do all sorts of roles. They've got under eights, under nine analysts. They've got under eights, under nines, under tens, talent coordinators, education specialists, nutritionists. Like, it is wild. As I don't know if you can hear two of my kids. They've just started playing
Okay.
FIFA EA 24.
All right.
And I'm immensely proud, but and they're arguing fiercely. But I think of my 8-year-old, where she's at and where some of these kids must be at. And she's very good at football, to be fair. But these kids at the academies, like the level of detail they go into. And that's the kind of next step that I want to make in terms of the show today. The impact of Mertesacker. Now, of course, we know him from his playing days at Arsenal. Arsene Wenger, of course, bringing him in. He's now, I think, finished 7 years as the academy manager. And there's a really good video of him with Frimpong of Arsenal.com where he talks about it's not just about football development and it's not just about education, but it's about the responsibility they are giving these 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds to go and work in their local communities, to be local leaders, to be local role models, to go into their local schools and colleges. And they're also doing special projects, like they look at ways of tackling racism, discrimination, like that. It's like sort of coursework that they do aside to just playing football. Being part of an academy, surprise, surprise, mate, is not just about waking up in the morning, putting on a pair of shorts and going out to the field just playing football all day. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Mertesacker and some of the other successful academies in football, it's not just an Arsenal thing, of course, they're trying to make these individuals as well-rounded, as humble as you see from Lewis-Skelly, as educated as possible, so that they are just, really good people more than footballers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think what probably goes into that is the reality that not all of them are going to play for Arsenal or even going to end up having football careers. So a couple of us, myself, Sam Dean, and Kaya Kainak, we spoke to Per in November, a little kind of roundtable interview. And he spoke about how important the under nines age group is, because that's where I guess you can get people like Ethan and Miles through the door, and kind of have them start a journey that then leads to them getting into the first team. But then also he said that when they're at that age, he's the one that actually goes and meets the parents when they're under nines.
Wow.
Which I think on reflection is probably quite massive. If you know about football, you obviously know who Per Mertesacker is. And he's the one that's doing a talk when your child's 8-9 years old. I think that probably sends quite a good message. But then also, he said that it's not just about kind of paying lip service, but telling them right at that point, only 1% of these kids is actually going to make it through. So I think, obviously, sorry about my voice. That's not, I guess, an easy message to deliver or digest, whichever side you're on. But it's about having that kind of realism there from the start, and then you can kind of add layers on to, I guess, the personalities of these players in other aspects. And I think one, I guess, really good example is Emile Smith-Rowe, because people, I think, during those lockdown years, people obviously remember his performance against Chelsea on Boxing Day, and just how he kind of changed everything. really, but he was still doing kind of the community stuff as well. And he was still quite a big face within that. And I think those people would have had an even deeper connection with him because of that. So that's where it kind of all comes full circle, I think, because as you said earlier, it's not just about kicking the ball. It's about, I guess, how you actually impact and affect people as well.
It is. I mean, the word grounded comes to mind. They're trying to make these people just well-rounded human beings, and obviously, the football element of it is fiercely tough, as you've just said. Fewer than 1% actually make it through from the academies into playing Premier League football, which is insane. I mean, the influence of Mertesacker is phenomenal. You can see it. There's a really wholesome video where he does a phone call, I think, with Saka and Nwaneri, and his closing messages were, "Be there, check in on me, check in on each other during the good times and the bad times. Don't forget your responsibility and the influence that you have on people and the joy that you bring to people." Like, that's all he said, and it was just so just left a really good impression on me.
Sorry,
Yeah, go on.
One thing I've seen a comment, don't forget about Mika Brierf, and it's a good point because so it's weird. I've actually interviewed him 3 times, which is like way more than anyone else, and he's always come across really well. But he actually didn't come through the doors at Arsenal until he was about 18 or 19, because he came through Fulham's academy, and he joined Arsenal as an under-21 player. Had one underwhelming loan, and then went to Motherwell, where he kind of blossomed. Spent 6 months there, was recalled and sent to Sturm Graz in Austria, won the league, and then Sturm Graz bought him. 6 months later, he gets his big move to Monaco, and Arsenal would have had a sell-on clause on that. And I think that's an example of, I guess, the academy also being important for what it can do for Arsenal financially.
Of course.
And I know that's probably a very kind of what's the word?
Well, it's like a sinister way of looking at it.
Yeah,
like, you're producing this talent just to sell them on. They're just sort of pieces of meat, that you can just sell on the market. But
slightly cynical,
that's the reality.
But again, Per Mertesacker's mentioned this before about how Arsenal's best sales in recent years have actually been from academy players. So you look at Emile, Iwobi, Nketiah, Willock, even Emi Martinez as well. They've brought in more money than any player that has actually been bought by the club and then sold on. And I think that's for a few factors. One of them is because they end up getting to a point where they need to play football, and they're not getting that kind of regular opportunity at Arsenal. So they need to find somewhere to play. The age is also a factor, but then also the players that Arsenal sign, I think oftentimes they have their best years at Arsenal, and then when it's time for them to leave, they're already on a downward kind of trajectory, or they end up getting their contract terminated.
Well, it's a hard world. It's a hard place to be.
So having that kind of talent there is really important, I think, for Arsenal, both from a playing perspective, but also to generate funds as well.
It is. And for anybody who wants further detail on Hale End, Arsenal did a really great 6-part documentary called Inside Hale End, which is available on YouTube. Just on Per, before we move on to the last couple of slides, Mark Berlin says, "I think Per deserves immense credit, and the club too. Having young players who are so connected with the club is great, but sending out decent, well-educated young men into society is even better. They are absolutely awesome role models." Donald says, "Yep, our BFG was a steal at £10 million to become a very good, useful player, to head coach of the youth development, worth his weight in gold." And Anajit Welcome says, "Per is turning out to be the magician behind the shadows, creating one gem after another." Talking of gems, the future gem can't not talk about Max Dowman. Here's a stat from Transfermarkt about Arsenal and their loyalty to under 18 players, and how much Mikel Arteta believes in Hale End. Now, look, as someone who's obviously seen some of the compilations, I've seen some of the stories about hat trick here and 4 goals there and 8 goals here, and amazing, right? But he is a child. So the question to you is, just how good is this kid? And B, do you expect him to have any sort of role this coming season, 25-26?
So to the first question, he's very good. So I've seen him. I've seen him play live, I think 3 times now. So the first time was in the UEFA Youth League, where Arsenal played against PSG at Bournemouth. And that was quite interesting because he didn't start. He came on after half an hour, and it seemed more like a tactical sub than an injury sub, which was quite interesting to make at that point in the game. And in that game, he came on the right wing, where actually, so Arsenal's under-21s head coach, Mehmet Ali, who I mentioned earlier, he was sat in the stands because it was a different head coach for this competition. And he was just given instructions throughout, telling Dowman kind of where to be positioned when the ball's on the other side of the pitch and other little things like that. But you saw his quality kind of shine through when he had the ball, was fouled numerous times, not because he couldn't kind of deal with the physical side of it, but because he just moved the ball so quickly. Second time was in the FA Youth Cup at the Emirates, where Arsenal narrowly lost out to Manchester United, but he was dominant again, despite being 3 years younger than the age group. And there you saw, I guess, that he was able to cope with that physically. There was a moment where he ran from inside his own half, took, I think, beat 2 or 3 players, and then won a penalty. It was a bit of a soft penalty, if I'm being honest, but won the penalty, and I think he scored it. And then also saw him in the under-17s Euros for England, where they played Belgium. And it was, again, really interesting to see him up against a player called Nathan de Cat, who 16 but already played first team games for Anderlecht. And they were quite, their battle was really good to see because it wasn't one-sided. There was times where Dowman kind of seemed like he'd embarrassed de Cat, just because he's able to kind of have that almost gliding quality when he's running with the ball. But then there were other times where Belgium's midfielder got the better of him. So yeah, very good. Interesting to see him develop over this season. Next season, so Mikel Arteta's already said that he'd likely be on the pre-season tour, or he'd hope for him to be on the pre-season tour, which isn't a total surprise, because he went on the mid-season camp to Dubai last season, I should say. In terms of actual exposure, I think it'd just be very like small glimpses. I wouldn't expect him to be kind of relied upon. And I don't think he should be either. As you said earlier, he's still a child. And I think I've been quite hesitant to actually speak and write about him for a while. But now that Mikel's spoken about him more openly and kind of unprompted in some situations, I think it's a little bit fairer now. But yeah, I think when you're looking to next season, you probably look at the League Cup as that maybe first opportunity once the season's fully underway. But he'll still be, he's not even 16 yet.
So, hasn't he scored for us? He played for us and he scored for us, hasn't he, in the League Cup?
No.
I just made that up.
Yeah, he's not made.
What did he do? I seem to recall him scoring at the Emirates in something.
That was the FA Youth Cup.
Was it the FA? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. He's a child. He will hopefully have some minutes next season, but he's absolutely not going to be a core part of the main squad. Thank you for that. Let's wrap up and talk about another Hale End Academy. And look, the news are, I couldn't do the show without getting your thoughts on the window, but Eberechi Eze in particular, phenomenal player, supremely talented, great season at Crystal Palace. There's a lovely little clip going around. I don't know where it's from, but one of our loyal viewers shared it on the socials yesterday about Eze just saying, it was always Arsenal for me. I wanted to play for Arsenal. And there's photos of him as a kid at the academy wearing his Arsenal shirt. Like, is this a story that remains to be written this summer holiday?
Yeah, so it's not one that's, I think, super, super far along the lines. So in terms of like, we haven't gone with it yet in terms of our reporting. But if we're just talking about personal feeling about it, I think that would be my dream signing, and that's because for a few reasons actually. The first one is he's about 5 days younger than me. Like we're literally like the same age. He's from Greenwich.
You guys.
I'm from Lewisham. He's very, very local. My brother's actually played five-a-side with his brother as well. So like
I love that.
there's so much like, I guess, personal stuff in there that makes me want it to happen. But then also, as you mentioned, the fact that he was an Arsenal youth player, and what I mentioned before in terms of stuff that's been missing over the past couple of seasons, in terms of having a player who can do the unexpected, someone who I guess very much like Smith Rowe when he joined or when he broke into the team, was just, you could see that they were at the club when Arsene Wenger was in charge, and plays the game almost the way that players like, say, a Fabregas, a Nasri, a Rosicky, a Hleb, those guys play it. And that's something that I think would be invaluable to this Arsenal team, because they don't have a player who does that on a consistent basis. And then you add on top of that the fact that he does have an end product, both with goals and assists. I think, yeah, for me, he is he's the one that I'd absolutely love for it to happen. But as I said at the start of this, I don't think it's as far along as social media's made it out to be at the minute.
Well, we live in hope. We live in dream, and who knows? This is a fairy tale that is waiting to be written, and I can't wait to see what your colleagues do with the news, if it, as and when it breaks, if it breaks, of course. Art, that's been fantastic. Really, really enjoyed that. Really appreciate you. And listen, someone just said, I think it was Practica earlier on, that week we got battered by United 8-2, and then Wenger went out and bought Arteta and Mertesacker, and look at him now. I mean, Arsene Wenger's done it. You just can't beat this guy. We can't beat this guy. He will always win. But Practica, that did make me smile. It's almost as if we lost on purpose. And now look at us. Fantastic. You listen, enjoy the England under-21 final. What are your plans for the summer? Are you going to take some rest before the start of the new season?
Hopefully.
It's relentless, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't had time to really think about holidays and stuff, which is probably quite bad.
Take a break.
Yeah, hopefully, I think next month at some point, I should be able to take some time off. If anyone has any recommendations for places to go, give me a shout.
I love that. I love that. If anybody wants to follow Art, he's available at Art de Roche, obviously football writer at The Athletic. Art, listen, enjoy tonight, enjoy the summer. Do get that break when it comes. We'd love to have you back on in the season. Best wishes to mum and to your bro as well. Have a fabulous day. Those of you that are watching, thank you for watching. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. We've had just shy of 1,000 new subscribers in the last week. I'm so grateful for all of the time that you guys make. I'm trying to make the best content that I can. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Do share high and wide. And I will see you tomorrow. And I'm going to be joined by Tom Canton of the Gooner Talk TV for another morning show. Have a great day. Enjoy the warm. Take care and bye for now.